Hi, I'm Ron Bateman, the Sheriff of Anne Arundel County. Welcome to your Anne Arundel's Most Wanted program, a program where we showcase wanted criminals, highlight open cases, and look to you for tips. You, concerned citizens, that share my same goal, and that's keeping our community safe. You'd be proud to know that your calls have allowed us to put handcuffs on thousands of criminals. So sit back, set your DVR, or grab a pen and paper, and help do your part in catching criminals. You're watching Anne Arundel's Most Wanted. Now it's my pleasure to introduce a new guest on our show, our new State's Attorney for Anne Arundel County, Mr. Wes Adams. Welcome to the show, Wes.
Ron, pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
So Justin couldn't make it for this month's show, so you are going to do the Anne Arundel County Police Wanted people. So who'd you bring for us?
Ron, our first subject is Rodney Earl Alston. He's a 29-year-old white male. He's 6'5", 165 pounds, with a last known address of 292 Turnwing Drive in Arnold, Maryland. He's wanted for a violation of probation in the circuit court for theft over $10,000. Let me tell you a little bit about that theft case. Back on April 30th of 2012, around 8 p.m., Alston was involved in a theft of numerous catalytic converters at the Sheehy Lexus of Annapolis, located at 121 Ferguson Road in Annapolis. During the incident, numerous converters were cut from the vehicles on the lot of Sheehy Lexus. The suspect was later located by police in possession of these converters. Our second subject is Corey Ryan Knapp, a 24-year-old white male. He's 6'2", 150 pounds, with a last known address of 1604 Teeman Drive in Glen Burnie, Maryland. He has 5 total warrants, 2 of them for violation of probation in the circuit court, and 3 warrants in the district court for failing to appear, DWI, and assault. His original violation of probation charge was for first-degree assault. His first-degree assault case goes a little bit like this, Sheriff. On February 28, 2014, at approximately 12:30 a.m., officers had to respond to the 200 block of 3rd Avenue in Baltimore for a home invasion. During the investigation, it was learned that the victim's ex-girlfriend and her new boyfriend, Corey Knapp, were walking up the stairs leading to the front door of his residence. Corey Knapp was holding an 8 to 10-inch butter knife, and both suspects forced themselves into the home. The female suspect was assaulting her ex-boyfriend while Knapp was swinging the butcher knife in an attempt to cut the male victim. Knapp was also swinging the knife at a female victim before both suspects left the residence. Corey Knapp was charged with 3 counts of first-degree assault, first-degree burglary, drug possession, and reckless endangerment for his involvement in this incident. Our third subject is Ronald Earl Riggin III. He's a 37-year-old white male. He's 5'11" and 200 pounds, with a last known address of 202 Oakley Avenue in Glen Burnie. He has 3 warrants for fleeing and eluding, child support, and assault. Recent attempts to serve the warrants have resulted in Riggin fleeing from police and operating his vehicle in an erratic and dangerous way. Most recently, he fled from police in November and again in December of last year during attempted traffic stops. Riggin has previously been profiled on the show.
Folks, you know the whereabouts of any of those individuals. Do not approach them. Instead, call that number on the screen, 410-222-1490 or 911 24 hours a day. Wes, great job. We'll talk to you more in a little bit. And of course, everyone recognizes our next guest as Corporal Amy Meegath from the Annapolis Police Department. Welcome back to the show, Amy.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Who'd you bring for us?
I've got 3 today. The first one is Juan Rodriguez. His date of birth is November 29th of 1979. He's a Hispanic male, 6 feet tall, weighing 160 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. He also has a tattoo on his right leg. His last known address is 54D Queen Caroline Court in Stevensville. He has 1 open warrant for theft less than $100. Officers responded to the Coles at 260 Solomon's Island Road for a theft that just occurred. The loss prevention supervisor told officers she had a suspect in custody for stealing clothing from the store. Juan Rodriguez left the store with a pair of pants hidden inside the waistband of the pants he was wearing. Rodriguez was charged with theft and failed to come to court for this charge. The second subject we have is Luis Oriana Morales. His date of birth is January 16th of 1981. He's a Hispanic male, 5 foot 7 inches tall, weighing 200 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. He also has a tattoo on his right leg. His last known address is 1112 Hoover Street in Annapolis, and he has one warrant for driving without a license. In this warrant, an officer was patrolling in the area of Spa Road when he noticed a silver Toyota Corolla driving at a high rate of speed. The officer initiated a traffic stop on the silver Toyota Corolla, and the driver was identified as Luis Oriana Morales. Oriana Morales did not have a driver's license, despite residing continuously in the United States for over 3 years. He was arrested for driving without a license. Oriana Morales failed to appear in court on these charges. And the third subject we have is Jesus Romero Ortega, also known as Jesus Romero. His date of birth is January 28th, 1981. He's a Hispanic male, 5 foot 5 inches tall, weighing 200 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. His last known address is 609 Island Creek Court in Annapolis. He has a warrant for second-degree assault. In this warrant, an officer was patrolling in the area of Island Creek Court when he saw a man and a woman. The woman flagged the officer down, and he noticed cuts and a knot on her head. The officer asked if she needed medical attention. The woman did not speak English well, so the officer contacted a Spanish interpreter to communicate, and the woman told the officer that her boyfriend, Jesus Romero Ortega, was intoxicated, and they started arguing. Romero Ortega grabbed her, threw her on the bed, and they hit their heads together, causing the knot on her forehead. Romero Ortega was angry and grabbed her hand, causing cuts from his fingernails. Romero Ortega was charged with second-degree assault, and he failed to come to court for these charges.
Very good. Folks, you know the whereabouts of any of those individuals. Do not approach them. Instead, call that number on the screen, 410-222-1490, or 911 24 hours a day. Keep those calls coming in, folks. Your tips are definitely paying off. Amy, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheriff.
And now for another regular guest on our show, Detective Sergeant Jimmy DeLay from the Maryland State Police, Glenn Burney Burke. Welcome back to the show, brother.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Who'd you bring for us?
We have 3 for you today. 2 alcohol-related offenses and 1 CDS offense. The first one is Anderson Manuel Martinez. He's a Hispanic male, 22 years of age, with a birthday of 9/18/92. 5 foot 8, approximately 160 pounds, with a last known address of 7963 Elverton Road, Glen Burnie, Maryland. On September 28th of last year, a Glen Burnie trooper was dispatched to northbound 295 in the area of Arundel Mills Boulevard to assist another trooper with a possible impaired driver. The trooper on the scene was traveling north on 295 in the area of 175 when he observed a blue Corolla traveling approximately 70 miles per hour. The vehicle was weaving and drifting between lanes. A traffic stop was initiated, and the driver was identified by his Kansas driver's license as Anderson Martinez. The Glen Burnie trooper made contact with Martinez, who was standing behind his vehicle. His eyes were red and glassy, and there was a strong odor of an alcoholic beverage emanating from his breath, and he admitted to consuming beers prior to driving. While speaking, his speech was slurred and he was unsteady on his feet. Martinez agreed to perform a series of field sobriety tests. He had trouble following instruction, and his balance was poor throughout the testing. He was arrested, transported to Glen Burnie Barrack for processing. Martinez refused the breath test and was released to a sober friend. Martinez failed to appear for court on March 9th this year and has an outstanding bench warrant for the DUI offense. The second one I have for you is Victor Miguel LaChapelle. He's a black male, 35 years old, with a birthday of 6/30/79. He's 5 foot 10 inches tall, weighs approximately 215 pounds, has a last known address of 1864 Hawk Court, Severn, Maryland. On January 11th, 2014, at approximately 3:30 p.m., a trooper responded to a single vehicle accident on the ramp from southbound 97 to westbound 100. The trooper observed a silver Ford Focus in the grass facing the wrong way, and the passenger rear door of the vehicle was resting against a tree. The trooper made contact with a driver who was in a seat with the keys still in ignition. The driver was identified by his Maryland identification card as Victor LaChapelle. LaChapelle was found to also have a suspended license. He had a strong odor of an alcoholic beverage on his breath in person, and LaChapelle admitted to consuming beer. His eyes were bloodshot and glassy. LaChapelle was transported to BWMC Hospital for treatment. While at the hospital, he refused to perform field sobriety and refused to submit to a test for alcohol content. He was issued citations for DUI and a suspended license, and he failed to appear for court on March 4th of this year and has an active bench warrant for that offense. The last one I have is Alexandra Lynn Seeley. She's a white female, 25 years old, with a birthday of May 4th, 1989. She's 5 foot 2 inches tall, weighs approximately 97 pounds, with a last known of 5'4". Let me back that up. She's 5 foot 2 inches tall, weighs approximately 97 pounds. Her last known address is 554 2nd Street, Gambrels, Maryland. On January 22nd of this year, a trooper assigned to our Criminal Enforcement Division was conducting surveillance at the Motel 6 located at A trooper assigned to the Criminal Enforcement Division was conducting surveillance at the Motel 6 located at 5179 Rayner Avenue in Linthicum. The trooper knew that the occupant of one of the rooms was Alexandra Seeley, who had 3 open warrants. Seeley was observed exiting a room. The trooper attempted to place her under arrest for the warrants. Seeley initially provided the trooper with a false name and also provided a license issued to another person. She was placed under arrest, and a search revealed she had heroin, crack cocaine, and paraphernalia on her person. Seeley failed to obey pretrial condition and has an open bench warrant for CDS violation and given false statement to a police officer.
Outstanding. Folks, you know the whereabouts of any of those individuals. You know the drill. Do not approach them. Instead, you call that number, 410-222-1490 or 911, 24 hours a day. Jimmy, good job, buddy.
Thanks, Sheriff.
And now for those subjects wanted by the Anne Arundel County Sheriff's Office. Let's see, our first subject. That is going to be Walter Lee Rogers. This subject is wanted for multiple counts of burglary and has a second warrant out of PG County for theft and CDS possession. On September the 30th of 2014, County Police took a report for burglary at the 4000 block of Belgrove Road in Baltimore. During that contact, officers learned the homeowner discovered her home was ransacked and suspected the thief entered through her bathroom window. True to form, the screen for the bathroom window that she normally leaves cracked open had been slid up. The crime lab was contacted and latent prints were lifted from items suspected to have been handled by the culprit or culprits. Those fingerprints matched that of Walter Lee Rogers, who was not known to the victim and clearly did not have permission to be in the home or remove property from the home. So today, we are looking for Walter Lee Rogers, who's a 23-year-old black male with a date of birth of December the 5th, 1991. He's 5 foot 11 inches tall, weighs 150 pounds, and has black hair and brown eyes. His last known address is 3702 4th Street in Brooklyn. Let's see, our next subject. It's going to be Paul Michael Boyd, Jr. This subject is wanted for failing to register as a sex offender and for violating his probation on a previous rape charge. Wow. During November of 2001, Paul Michael Boyd, Jr. was convicted of second-degree rape and incarcerated until March the 11th, 2011. He is required to register for life as a Tier 3 sexually violent offender with the Maryland Registry. On October 23, 2014, Boyd Jr. last registered in person at the Northern District of the Anne Arundel County Police Department. He provided the address of Homeless in Anne Arundel County for the registry. Unbelievable. Boyd Jr. failed to check in weekly since October 23rd, and a warrant was issued as a result. Paul Michael Boyd Jr. was on probation for his prior rape charge. He failed to comply with sexual offender counseling, had contact with minors, and was previously not compliant with registering as a sexual offender in Tennessee, and was reported to have returned to Tennessee without permission from his probation agent. As a result, another warrant was issued for the probation violations. So today we are looking for Paul Michael Boyd, Jr., who's a 38-year-old white male with a date of birth of August 17th, 1976. He's 5 foot 8 inches tall, weighs 150 pounds, and has black hair and hazel eyes. His last known address is 2221 Strickland Street in Baltimore. Now let's see here, our next subject. That's going to be Robert George Jashik. This subject has multiple warrants, 7 to date. Burglary, another burglary, violating probation, and 4 failure to appear for court warrants. Let's see. Jashik failed to appear for court on July 21st of 2014 for driving on a suspended license and driving without required license, so a warrant was issued for the FTA. The first burglary warrant was issued August 18, 2014, based upon a county police application for entering and removing property from an address in the 1200 block of Swan Hill Court in Baltimore. The violation of probation for a prior burglary charge was issued September the 8th because Jashik failed to report as directed. He picked up numerous new traffic charges on several occasions, and he failed to appear for court for those hearings. Unbelievable. Another violation of probation warrant was issued on September the 8th for prior theft charges for the same probation infractions we discussed. As if that was not enough, Jashik failed to report for court on September the 12th, my birthday, and on October 27th for traffic offenses, driving on suspended license, driving without required license, yada, yada, yada. So a new warrant was issued for each of those FTAs. Wow, he just can't seem to show up for court. We are looking for Robert George Jashik, who is a 34-year-old white male with a date of birth of November 21st, 1980. 6 foot tall, he weighs 195 pounds, and has black hair and hazel eyes. And his last known address is 1332 Hollow Glen Court in Baltimore. Our next subject, that is going to be Mark Anthony Norman Jr. Norman Jr. failed to appear for court. That happens. Norman Jr. failed to appear on 3 different occasions, so let's dig into what his issues are. On December the 24th of 2014, Norman Jr. had a child support hearing, which he failed to appear for, so a bench warrant was issued for that. On January the 7th, 2015, he had court for prior disturbing the peace, disorderly conduct, and resisting arrest charges, which he also failed to appear for. So as a result of that, a new bench warrant was issued for that infraction. On January 12th, he had court for a prior malicious destruction of property charge. Once again, he failed to appear, so another bench warrant rolled out for him. So today, we are looking for Mark Anthony Norman Jr., who is a 25-year-old black male with a date of birth of January 29th of 1987. He's 5 foot 11 inches tall, weighs 160 pounds, and has black hair and brown eyes. His last known address is 443 Ingram Court in Glen Burnie. Our next subject, that is Angela Michelle Mason. On October 27, 2014, Mason failed to appear for court for her previous conspiracy to commit burglary charge. A bench warrant was issued for that. On November 13th of 2014, Mason failed to appear for court for her previous CDS, possession of paraphernalia charge. Another bench warrant was issued. On January 12, 2015, Mason failed to appear for court for her previous CDS, possession of paraphernalia charge. Yet another bench warrant rolled out. Today, we are looking for Angela Michelle Mason, who is a 35-year-old white female with a date of birth, January 29th, 1980. She's 5 foot 4 inches tall, weighs 150 pounds, and has blonde hair and blue eyes. And her last known address is 715 Willoughby Run in Pasadena. Now our next subject is Michael Lee Foote. Foote was on probation for a prior burglary conviction. He failed to report as required, failed to provide verification of employment, failed to obey all laws by picking up new charges for assault on November 13th, 2014, failed to provide verification of alcohol and drug evaluation and treatment, failed to make himself available for urinalysis testing, and failed to provide verification that he has been assessed or enrolled in mental health treatment. A bench warrant rolled out for all of those infractions. Similar violation of probation warrants were issued for the 2 other hearings for his prior assault conviction and his prior failed to comply with peace order conviction. So today we are looking for Michael Lee Foote, who is a 24-year-old white male. His date of birth is October 7th, 1987. He's 5 foot 11 inches tall. He weighs 185 pounds and has brown hair and brown eyes. His last known address is 1208 Cathedral Drive in Glen Burnie. You may have heard me say this a million times, but the majority of our arrest warrants in Anne Arundel County, and in fact the state of Maryland, are for failure to appear because people just can't seem to show up for court. So anyway, we have a new program hopefully be rolling out in the next few months that may help correct that problem. So here are our 3 most wanted deadbeats. This information is provided to us by our hardworking friends at the Anne Arundel County Office of Child Support. Our first DB is Roy H. Means, Jr. He is $27,126 in arrears with paying child support. Means Jr. is a 49-year-old white male with a date of birth of August 10th, 1965. He's 6 feet tall, weighs 170 pounds, has brown hair and blue eyes. And his last known address is 76 Serpents Court in Rosedale. Next, we have Antonio S. Wilson. He is $25,990 in arrears with paying child support. Wilson is a 34-year-old black male with a date of birth of April 22nd, 1970. He's 5 foot 8 inches tall, weighs 220 pounds, has black hair and brown eyes. His last known address is 8244 Old Mill Road in Pasadena. Next, that's going to be Curtis J. Spoon. He is $10,524 in arrears with paying child support. Spoon is a 30-year-old white male. He has a date of birth of July the 31st, 1984. He's 6 feet tall, weighs 250 pounds, and has brown hair and brown eyes. His last known address is 1026 Minnetonka Road in Severn. Remember, folks, you know the whereabouts of those individuals. Do not approach them. Instead, call that number on the screen, 410-222-1490 or 911 24 hours a day. Now, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to meet our new state's attorney, Mr. Wes Adams, so stay tuned.
Listen to me. I am captain of the track team. And if I'm late,
She doesn't really think she's going to get out of here, does she?
Be nice. She's new.
Hello, is anyone there? Ugh!
Wow. Even from our standards, you look awful.
Oh, sweetie, what happened?
Me? My friend Becky got to talk to this super cute boy, and I tried to act like I wasn't jealous, but I so totally was. And then out of nowhere, this concrete barrier just popped up. Maybe it was a semi.
You mean you were driving?
Yeah. I mean, I know the whole eyes on the road thing, but this was a super important text. Maybe you have to know, Becky.
Texting? Great.
But it was only like 5 seconds, and I'm a really, really fast texter, so it wasn't even a big deal. Actually, has she texted me back yet? Wow, I get like no bars in this place. I wonder if they have Wi-Fi here.
Okay, folks, welcome back from the break. I have Mr. Wes Adams, the new state's attorney for Anne Arundel County. Welcome, buddy.
Thank you, Sheriff.
So listen, what we want to talk about is what you want to accomplish since you're the new state's attorney, and some of the things that have happened so far. You and I talked off camera, some really cool convictions that have recently come down from the courts, which is great news. But first, let's talk about some restructuring that you've got going on and some of the new talent you brought in and why you brought them in.
Absolutely. With everything, we need a little bit of leadership, so I have reached back with some of my contacts, and we've brought in a new Deputy State's Attorney John Church.
Great guy.
Absolutely. He's a 20-year veteran of the Anne Arundel County Police Department. Became a lawyer. He's been a prosecutor for the last 10 years. He recently was over at the Department of Defense. He helped restructure their police force there. Mr. Church has multiple homicide trials. He did 11 homicide trials in 2013.
Wow.
He's helped rebuild the unit over in DOD. He's an outstanding person for both his integrity and for working with the troops here in the State's Attorney's Office. Provides tremendous insight to the young lawyers in how to prepare their cases and has been an incredible asset to us.
Great, great.
We've also brought over Jason Knight. Jason Knight he came to us from Baltimore City in Prince George's County, prosecuted 9 murder trials only last year. He has taken over in our violent crime unit. He's working as one of our head gang prosecutors. So he'll be spearheading the effort to help root out the gangs here in the county.
Good, good.
He brings a tremendous amount of experience and dedication. Jason has worked already on one of our major convictions that we're going to talk about later on, helped putting a guy in jail for the rest of his life. So he is the second piece of the puzzle that we've brought in. The last person that we brought in, Sheriff, is Nicole Norris. Miss Norris brings to us a tremendous amount of experience fighting drugs. Miss Norris was a prosecutor up in Baltimore City. She brought about 250 jury trials worth of narcotics experience with her. She then went to Tucson, Arizona, where she was doing cross-border smuggling and importation cases through the United States Attorney's Office. From there, she went to the DEA, where she was teaching agents how to build cases, how to turn over discovery, all sorts of things that make these cases work. And we were lucky enough to get her. She's now heading my narcotics prosecution unit, and really she's assigned to our heroin task force.
That's a serious piece of talent to bring to the office, too. That's great. So let's talk about the heroin task force. You and I are submersed in this heroin task force. The county executive has created this
this huge endeavor that requires all of us, the State Attorney's Office, the Sheriff's Office, the Police Department, the Health Department, the education system. Everyone's involved in trying to combat heroin in Anne Arundel County. I'm involved. I have a K-9 and a deputy sheriff that are out doing undercover buys and search warrants and searching cars and houses with the K-9 and doing a great job. Let's talk about your involvement.
Sure. What we've done is we've assigned a heroin prosecutor. That's Miss Norris that I just mentioned before.
Great.
We have beefed up our unit to try to add one more prosecutor into there so that we can handle the new influx of cases that you guys are doing such a good job investigating. What we've done is work to increase the strength of our case by partnering with our law enforcement people like yourself and those on the task force so that we can get great results. Really, our main focus in this fight is incarcerating those that would deal the slow death of heroin to our citizens. We have an education piece to work with our kids. We are rehabilitating some of the users because we recognize that that's a focus. But really, the main part is to make it inhospitable to deal drugs here in Anne Arundel County. To that effect, we had a great conviction last week. Someone who was previously convicted of drug dealing in our county, who had been left out on the streets. Unfortunately, while he was there, he started dealing again. We caught him with over $3,000 in cash and well over 30 caps of heroin.
Wow.
Ready to be delivered to our community. He was convicted. He now faces 10 years without the possibility of parole and upwards of 40 years in jail for his drug dealing.
Wow, great. Good job. So recently you had some convictions we talked about off camera. Can you expound on those a little bit?
Sure. Well, we've had 4 great murder sentences coming up in the past 2 months, but let me just talk to you about the first one that we had. Gregory Lewis, the Craigslist killer, he was luring people out with the idea of selling cars via a Craigslist ad. We took over this case. It was in a little bit of disrepair, but Mr. Church and Mr. Knight developed a great new witness. He really brought all the pieces of the case together. We went from having a trial where Mr. Lewis really had a chance of walking home and being able to commit this type of crime again, to he ended up taking a plea to first-degree murder. He's a 35-year-old man. He was sentenced to 60 years in jail. It means we're going to keep him locked up until he's 95. He will not be out on the streets to hurt anybody again.
Good. Keep that dirt off the streets of Anne Arundel County.
More recently, we've had 3 other murder convictions, each one of them taking the defendants off the street until they're at least 75 years old. So we have been focusing on keeping our streets safe by removing those who would prey on our citizens, and that's been a big part of what we've been doing the first few months here.
Great. I love what you bring to the table.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Great to have you part of the Public Safety Core Group, brother.
I'm proud to be part of the team here in the county, fighting crime and keeping us safe.
Great. Folks, as I end, I want to thank a few people that allow this show to happen every single month. First, behind that camera, we have Mr. Dale Boyer. From my office, Lieutenant Jennifer Gilbert-Duran, who produces this show and does a great job every single month. I want to thank our county executive, Mr. Steve Shue, Chief of Police from the Anne Arundel County, Tim Altamari, Chief Mike Pristu from the Annapolis Police Department, and the Superintendent of the Maryland State Police, that's Colonel Bill Palazzi. And of course, I want to thank my friend, Mr. Wes Adams, the new State's Attorney for Anne Arundel County. Remember, folks, let's keep Anne Arundel County safe. I'll see you next time on Anne Arundel's Most Wanted.